So why come over? And after coming over, how have your expectations been met?
Wow. Life changed 180 degrees, Nick, after I joined Ronival. It was just coming from a very dark place into the light. Yeah. It was teamwork, family, support, education, all those words can be used to describe what I discovered when I came to Ronival. And it makes our job as agents that much easier. We're really focused on being with the clients, sellers and buyers all the time, and providing the services, taking people out on tours, showings, and not having to worry about so much of the back end of the business. There's so much support that you have provided all of us agents, and it shows in the success of Ronival.
Welcome to the Nick Fong Podcast. As the broker and owner of Ronival Real Estate, Nick has spent nearly 20 years in Baja, California, sir. And in this podcast, he'll be talking everything Baja, from food and culture to real estate and property management. And now, here's your host, Nick Fong.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. Michael Hopkins, how are you?
Good afternoon, Nick. I'm great. Thank you.
Got the lights, got the cameras, a couple microphones. Hopefully not too intimidating for you.
A little bit, but we'll work through it. We'll muster through it.
Tell everyone where you're from, Michael.
Originally, I'm from a little town in the western desert of Utah. If you've ever known where the Bonneville Salt Flats are, where they race rocket cars, that's the county I was born and raised in.
And you stayed there until?
8 years old, we moved to Okinawa, Japan. My father worked for the U.S. government, and we were in Japan on the island of Okinawa for about 3 years.
Wow. And then from Okinawa, you're 11 years old or so?
Yeah, about then. We moved Fort Ord, California, along the Pacific coast near Monterey, and then back to Utah to do high school and college.
For those of you that don't know, Michael Hopkins is one of our real estate agents, and you joined us about how long ago?
It was November, Thanksgiving Day of 2021.
All right, so over a year.
Yes.
And you were new or experienced coming into the company?
I was experienced. I had been with 2 other brokerages prior.
Okay.
Yes.
So how many years have you been selling real estate now?
About 10, 12 years.
Okay. And of those 10, 11 years, how many more years were you living in Cabo? How long have you been here?
16 years. I'm just in the middle of my 16th year right now.
Okay. And what brought you here?
I was working for a developer in Texas in the private golf residential community business. And general manager called me into his office one day and he says, Michael, we have a new project in Cabo San Lucas and we would like you to go down there and help out for a couple weeks. It was over the holiday. It was over Christmas in December of 2007. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure, I'll go. And at the end of that 3 weeks, they slid a contract across the table and paying me substantially more than they were paying me in Texas to stay. And I stayed and never left.
What project did they bring you into for what started as 3 weeks and became?
It was Chileno Bay.
Chileno.
Yeah, Discovery Land Company when they made their first foray into Chileno Bay.
Okay, and the project that you were selling in Texas was also a high-end?
I was not selling in Texas.
Oh, you weren't?
No, my background was the hospitality industry. I'd worked for about 25 years in the hotel business, and Discovery was opening and starting a new project in the Dallas area, and a general manager that I had, actually he wasn't a general manager, he was a director of golf that I had worked with at a previous resort, golf hotel resort in Dallas, asked me if I wanted a job one day. And I got a job in the golf side of the business, and that segued into member services. I worked my way up to the director of member services at a very nice residential golf community in Texas that Discovery had. And after about 6 years of that, then the opportunity to come to Cabo came up.
How long were you at Chileno?
Chileno through the ups and downs of the recession in 07, 08, 09 for about 2 years.
Okay.
And then Chileno closed due to the recession. And I did some odd things around here, marshaled at Cabo Real to get playing privileges. And then I got a job at Diamante, and I did basically the same thing there. I started the residential services program there, where I was basically the liaison between the real estate owners and the developer.
Okay. And then you got into real estate sales after how many
Exactly.
years?
After about 2 to 3 years at Diamante, then I got into real estate sales.
Why did you decide to transition from guest services, hospitality into sales?
Honestly, the amount of time I was putting in. I was working 6 days a week, 12 hours a week, keeping everybody happy there. And I saw that the sales agents were working hard as well, but their work didn't seem as hard.
Okay.
And they were making a lot more money.
All right.
That was the segue.
How would you say coming from hospitality has helped you in real estate sales?
Basically providing service. Real estate is the same concept, I feel, except we are providing a different service. So understanding the product, understanding the people. We always had a saying back in the day, you have to live it to sell it. So you have to understand what that market is all about. And so through my time in Texas in the hospitality industry and here in Cabo, it's pushed me more towards the luxury market.
Okay. And what does luxury mean for you when it comes to sales?
Well, obviously, besides a price point, it also would mean amenities, lifestyle, and finishes. The FF&E of a home, furniture, fixtures, equipment, things like that, and finishes would probably be where I would focus on. And then also the maintenance and the care of the home. You can spend $2 or $3 million on a home, but if you don't take care of it, when it comes time to sell, it's sure going to show.
And you, on the real estate sales side, work with both buyers and sellers.
Yes, I do work with both buyers and sellers, though I primarily feel I'm a little more comfortable and better working with sellers in taking a property and learning the property, telling the story about the property. You have to like a home in order to sell it. And so I want to get into the home, spend some time in it, feel it, watch how the sellers live in the home, get an idea of how the home works. And that way I can tell the story to potential buyers and agents when they come and tour the home.
What I always like to tell agents that want to become listing agents, and what I ask all my sellers is, tell me about the buying process when you bought the house.
Exactly.
Because how many properties did you see? What other communities you saw? You get into the mindset and what ultimately became the variables, the factors for them to choose that house.
Yeah, why they fell in love with
Right.
the home. And once I learned that, then I can put that into my mind and be able to find those same features of the home, the same idea, the same feeling. And I feel if I can exude that to agents and buyers, then all the better to represent my sellers.
Right. Sellers typically, though, are more difficult to work with than buyers.
Exactly.
And so you seem to be a sucker for punishment then. Coming from hospitality,
Sure.
working long hours, not getting paid like a salesperson, and then choosing the listing side over the buy side.
It was just more of a comfort level for me. I feel it is more difficult to work with sellers than buyers, but I feel once you get into their mindset and gain their trust, it's all about relationships as well. That was a big part of my business and getting listings, also with buyers, but having a good relationship with these people and having a good relationship with your sellers, understanding their challenges, trying to put yourself in their shoes, but also you need to explain the realities of what's going on. I had a conversation today about capital gains, and just explaining those nuances of what we have to deal with here in order to minimize a capital gain. So very similar.
Why do you think it's more difficult to work with sellers than buyers, typically?
Sellers have they're proud of their property. They've worked very hard, very long. To not only afford the money to buy the property, but to care for it and live in it. So they have memories. And a lot of it then brings me to, well, then why are you selling? Yeah. And that's a big question that we always ask our sellers. Why are you selling? What what is prompting you to make this move? Are you going to upgrade? Are you downgrading? Are you leaving the Cabo market entirely?
Yeah.
And so then knowing that will also help me understand their reasoning. And then that gives me the ability to work with them and help solve their problems or challenges that they may have.
Hey, thanks for being a part of the Nick Fong Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast to get the latest updates. And if you're watching this on our social channels, please like and share. And if you want to be featured or you want me to talk on a certain topic, food, activities, culture, real estate in the Baja, drop a comment.
When you list a property, what are some of the challenges that a listing agent will typically encounter that you've experienced?
The condition of the property, how the property's been cared for. If you have to kind of have a reality check with the homeowner and say, yes, you've lacked on some maintenance and some care of the home, or I think you've gone on listing appointments with me and I walk around the home with a fine-tooth comb and I'm looking for something wrong. And there's been many properties where we cannot find anything wrong. And those properties are obviously the pleasure ones to sell because usually they'll sell fast and without any headaches.
Why is it important for you as a listing agent and the seller to go through that level of detail before listing the property?
Well, first of all, because if a buyer is in the luxury market that we're talking about, they're going to do the same thing. And then they're going to hire a home inspection to be the same thing. So I want to know inside and out the inner workings of the home so I can represent, truthfully what we're actually selling and also be able to speak to it honestly and candidly with a potential buyer.
So if a seller isn't willing to take your advice and repair things or stage, what are some of the harsh realities?
Well, the harsh reality might be then it's going to be maybe listed at a lower price point, and you're just going to have that truthful conversation with the seller to say, okay, if we want to sell it in an as-is situation and we're not going to make any changes or improvements, that's great. That might work in this market, but the reality is we are going to see a lower price point probably.
And so a seller might say to you, okay, Michael, I can accept a lower price. You're telling me, here's your list of 100 things you want me to change, and it's going to cost me $100,000. I'll do a $100,000 reduction on the list price. Does that make sense?
It sure does, yes. That could work. I think there's a lot of little things that can be done that don't cost a lot of money. Just sprucing the place up. Having it organized, ready to go for a listing. When I have a listing appointment, I usually arrive at least a half hour to 45 minutes early and just do a walk around myself. What can I do at this point to make this look better for a presentation?
Now, I'm going to politely disagree with you.
Okay.
The $100,000 in an example of repairs, I have found that if you're selling a property, that if it's $100,000 in repairs or in staging expenses, you make it back 2, 3, 4, 10-fold in some cases as a seller, because the buyer doesn't want to go through that pain and headache.
Very good point.
They're going to just mentally say time, effort, I've never done this before. So I'm going to discount the property so much so that the seller, most of the time, was better off doing it in the very beginning.
Exactly.
So that's just from a pure economic standpoint. But then also, our buyers in the Cabo area, especially luxury, want turnkey, ready to go. They don't want to envision something. And that's the typical buyer. And so if they have to envision something, they're just going to pass right over it.
Exactly.
From maybe not even booking the tour, but if they do book the tour and actually come through the property, those are the ones that walk in and out in less than 5 minutes.
True.
Now, that's just my experience. So that's where I would say,
I agree.
To your point on
that.
Good
point. And another thing you can do with a seller is do a pre-listing inspection where you can go ahead and bring in, for $500, $600, $700, $800, a home inspection where they do go through the home, check all the systems, check all the functionality of everything in the home. And then you have it in writing and you can then go back to the seller and say, look, we have a few deficiencies here. Let's correct them, hopefully for a least amount of money, and get the bigger return on the back end.
And how would you use that report in selling it to a buyer?
Well, then you would just have it available. You would say, look, we just did an inspection, 2 months ago or whatever the time frame is, and you have it here in writing. This is a, third party that's done this, and here you go.
And I can say that most sellers don't do that.
No, they don't.
Most listing agents don't recommend that. And because listing agents might lose the potential listing in suggesting it, and sellers just don't want the added expense. But these are just tools and tricks
exactly
to sell luxury properties faster and for more money.
Exactly. So keep it as smooth for the process on the back end.
So you mentioned you were working for 2 other real estate companies prior, and you joined us a little over a year ago. What prompted the change from your past company to the current?
I had a friend that I had worked with previously at a different brokerage who joined Ronival and was having some great success. And he kind of drugged me kicking and screaming into your office one day for a meeting. So I basically needed to take care of some listings that I had with my previous brokerage and get those tightened up and sold. And then I was able to make the change.
So why come over? And after coming over, how have your expectations been met?
Wow. Life changed 180 degrees, Nick, after I joined Ronival. It was just coming from a very dark place into the light. Yeah. It was teamwork, family, support, education, all those words can be used to describe what I discovered when I came to Ronival. And it makes our job as agents that much easier. We're really focused on being with the clients, sellers and buyers all the time, and providing the services, taking people out on tours, showings, and not having to worry about so much of the back end of the business. There's so much support that you have provided all of us agents, and it shows in the success of Ronival.
What are some of the things that you appreciate the most inside Ronival that maybe other brokerages don't offer in the area?
The ability to send a message or pick up the phone and have a question and have it answered correctly in a matter of minutes. The teamwork effort that we have. We break all of our agents up into groups of 5 to 10 agents per team, and working within that team structure, I like that. I work well in that structure, and then it is a family. You have a very good camaraderie, and everyone is willing to help anyone with a showing, with a tour, with questions, anything you have. Where can I find this? We always have an answer.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you a part of the Ronival team and family. Rocio and I talk about you often. And it's your appreciation for what the company offers.
Yes.
And also, we don't get to say it often enough, but we really appreciate you.
Thank you, Nick. And I as well. I appreciate everything that you and Rocio have done for me. You've given me great opportunities, which has translated into very good success for me.
I know there's a lot more success to come.
I hope so.
And thank you for coming on the podcast. This wasn't too bad, was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't as painful.
All right. Well, we have to get to an appointment for a listing. So until the next one, bye for now.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nick Fong Podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and the YouTube channel at youtube.com/Ronival Real Estate and follow Nick on Instagram at NickFong_Ronival. Ready to find your Baja dream home? Check out the latest property listings at Ronival.com or findmexicohouses.com. Hasta luego.